starting Sunday to next Tuesday is like moving for me for my new place.
Gonna cry.
I know. I'm gonna be back literally like the next week. If you ever want to hang out between now and fucking August, just let me know and I will arrive. Um, but Jacob is letting me borrow his old L desk. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and like it's got the extra ledge on it for the monitors. So I'm so fucking excited to not have to battle with this shitty at like this desk is really nice that I have, but it is very much like not made to have like clamps on it for like the microphone or the monitors. So I'm so excited to have something that is like gonna I could just have everything floating and actually like use my space because I would also like a new mic arm because this one is shit.
Yeah.
And I have a good microphone, so it feels like a really shitty compromise.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that like right now I wanted to upgrade some of my equipment because outside of this I wanted to start recording a Let's Play channel with Ian, if you remember.
Yeah.
Um so like that's been like the goal, and I was like around the same time I was messaging you, Matt, about buying new microphone, not like when you were asking about the microphones. I also started looking at the prices of that
Oh,
stuff.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
so I
gonna
was
try
looking
and get a
into
new
it.
mic soon, Emily. I don't know
Oh,
when
hell yeah.
exactly, but yeah, I was asking for some recommendations from peeps.
I love my Blue Yeti. I got this thing
Yeah,
refurbished.
please.
Mm.
I know Logitech bought them, but I also kind of trust Logitech with their peripherals because my both my mouse and my keyboard are Logitech. Um, and so is my webcam. It's just fucking like 6 years old. So.
This doesn't go on stream, but never forget the submarine. Oh,
Oh,
the Logitech gaming controller.
yeah, yeah.
That shit is wild to me. I still think about it sometimes. Whenever I hear the brand, that's like one of the things I think about like right off the rip is just like, why did they what was the plan
That's
here?
on them, frankly.
Yeah.
That's a skill issue. I would trust a Logitech controller wholeheartedly. I've never had
Yeah.
all my little wireless USB mice have always been Logitech. I love Logitech. They're great. They're cheap and
Yeah.
good. But
Yeah.
that's on them.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I've
I
been
have
using
a lot of Logitech stuff nowadays.
It's
Like,
because they're cheap. They're cheap and they're
yeah.
reliable,
That's
which
like,
you
but
don't
that's like
find both.
good. Yeah, that's good. I don't like spending all this money on like streamer gear. I felt like when I
Yeah.
was streaming, I was spending so much time and money just trying to like keep up to date with like not only like the video games I needed, but all the equipment. And I was running myself like really low on money because I was like spending all this money to get like nice equipment. And then like by the time I got everything, like oh, there was like a new thing or like a new video game, and I was always like just like feeling very behind when I was working on that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
I feel that. I try to like not dip too much into things because it's like
yeah.
you just want to see if what you're trying to do even has legs first. So I feel like you just gotta like do your idea for whatever you're trying to make, if it's streaming or videos or whatever. Just like roll with it for a few months and then maybe start
Hopefully
building
that's
things up if you see
Yeah.
it has some traction.
yeah.
And like
It's good though.
yeah, I like
Okay.
streaming. It's just the problem is that it takes up so much time, and it's not
Yeah,
even like the number one thing is always just going to be consistency.
yeah.
But the problem is it's like
Yeah.
consistency and constant, like constant and consistent, and that's just a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't even
it's
I don't
also
even feel
like
like I have that anymore.
I think for me, the biggest blocker was just that, like, you have to start and then, like, be there uninterrupted for, like, hours. Where usually
Mhm.
I find when I boot something up, there's many times where it's like, I'll play for a while and then I have to, like, go do something. Even if it's, like, for just, like, 10-15 minutes. But, like, you can't do that if you're trying to build up, like, an audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People will be like, okay, this person's been away for more than a minute. Like, I'm leaving. And that's the thing. It's not unreasonable on either end. Like from the streamer side, like I get it. it's tough to be there for a long period of time, and on the other end, it's like I get that you're trying to watch a stream for entertainment. So
It was interesting finding out more recently that like Hassan Piker had like the headphones, like wireless headphones, when he
oh,
walked away.
did
So
he get
could still
caught?
hear things.
Oh, okay, got
No,
it.
no, because people kept like joking like chair react because he would like get up from his like desk to like do something, like
Yeah,
get a soda or something else. And he'd do it so frequently,
yeah.
but people were like, oh, he's just not making content. But if you're like streaming for like 8 hours a day and like
Especially Hassan,
you
like
have to
that
get
dude
up,
is fucking on 7 days a week, man. Like it's crazy
yeah.
for
I mean,
long
it's
ass streams
cool.
too.
It's cool that you get to do that type of job, but like I can see how like sitting in a stream and like having to deal with people every day would not fun. That's why I'm like more towards I guess like recorded information and recorded stuff more so than like
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
live stream.
That's where I'm at. Especially because I
I
don't think
also
I'm like entertaining on the fly in that way, in terms of just being able to
yeah
like make whatever I'm playing funny. Like I think I can record something and then like say something substantive about it after the fact, but I'm just not. I'm not a gamer improver. Is the way
I
I'll
get
put
that.
it.
I get that. I mean, I think for me, like, I wish I could do more recorded stuff. I just don't have like I haven't practiced editing or like really learned it. Which I'd
Yeah.
like
yeah
to at some point. But I know for me, like, and I'm definitely realizing that now because I'm not streaming for content. I'm streaming as like an archive for myself.
Yeah, that's kind of what
Um,
I'm doing too.
yeah, but like doing it now, I'm like, shit. The times when I had someone else there with me,
Mm-hmm.
that's the best because you have someone else to riff off of, and
Yes.
that's also more fun too because it's not just you. So like, that is I think more enjoyable for me is having another person there.
Yeah, I saw a video this morning that was talking all about how like basically a thesis of the video was we should have a lot more co-op games because they do
yeah
well and are a natural like gift for streamers to just make stuff out of. But it's also fun to just like hop on a co-op game with friends that isn't, live service gear. That's like true co-op, like Portal, or even I think stuff like Lethal Company and Repo more recently. Like so, certain developers are certainly understanding that, but it's not like a mainstream thing right now.
Yeah, yeah, because it's also like I think there's still some companies that are trying to figure out like battle royales, and it's like
Oh
that's
yeah,
done.
that's done.
That's been
yeah
solved a little bit.
Yeah.
And
the
like
big
arena
Fortnite.
shooters and stuff, and it's like that's not what people like that. The things that are peak that's a genre that's been solved for the time being. Like put that in the
Yeah
closet.
Hmm.
Find like you said co-op games, not competitive MMO like MOBAs or whatever. Like
Yeah, I
no,
think we're
find
gonna
something new.
I
see a lot of like co-op games in more recent times, and we're
I
we're also like in a kind of parry age. I feel like a lot of games have parry mechanics and
I
recent
love
memory.
parry mechanics, but
You hate them or love them?
no, I love them.
Oh,
Which
I
okay.
mechanics?
love them.
Missed it.
Parries,
Parrying's fun.
Oh
What
yeah.
parry
Hi-Fi
god?
Rush being
But
one of
yeah,
them. Maybe that could be our
but
segue.
I did want to say before we start talking about Hi-Fi Rush, one of the things I do think that's been happening that's interesting, two things.
Oh,
You cut
he
out for
died.
me,
Nick's dead.
man. The
With
Did I
media
have
is
his screen share?
silencing
like,
him.
si
You gotta
I'm
start
cutting out,
over. Yeah, you cut off.
dude.
I
Give me
heard
a
two
sec.
things.
I'm trying to like figure out why.
Yeah, are you
I'm trying to
hardwired
figure out
in?
why like my internet. I'm not hardwired. I probably need to like swap to like I don't have a hardwire. I have to like buy one of those
Oh,
adapter
okay.
things. So I was using Wi-Fi, but my Wi-Fi has been like kind of spotty in my room. So I don't know. I don't know why
Is
it
Yeah,
Steam like
is.
running an auto update or something updating?
That could be it. Let me check.
I think it's okay on the recording for the most part. Like I've seen your
Yeah.
frame rate kind of going down, but it doesn't seem like OBS is capturing that. It's mostly just
Okay.
Nice.
Discord. I'm
I
seeing
guess
here.
but I guess what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, what, dude? I think you were right. Steam is just on in the background. I might
Yeah,
have just fixed it.
that happens to me.
That's so annoying.
Oop, I just got a raise.
You just got
But
a
what I was gonna
raise?
say.
I just got a raise.
Oh hell
Let's
yeah!
go.
The union, I get the grad student union just negotiated higher pay for us. So.
Let's go.
Wow.
Um, but what I did want to say, and I'm gonna say it now, and everyone's gonna shut up because I hate you guys. Okay. Anyways, what I wanted to say was that it's really cool to see that single player games now have been featuring more multiplayer modes. Like two games I could think of offhand was like Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate was not advertised as a 4-person co-op or even more person co-op because you can add mods to it, but you can play that game entirely multiplayer with a group of 4 people, which is a lot of fun, and it is a very separate experience than playing like Baldur's Gate by yourself. I've played both at this point, and personally, I prefer to play it as a co-op because each of my friends can also role play with me,
Mhm.
in terms of like what we say and the decisions that we make. But it is cool just that, you can just have your own solo story where you control every aspect of your campaign, your characters, the way things move. It's really interesting. I really like those types of things. And on the other hand, I've been seeing a lot of games because I've been playing Dark Souls co-op, where people have been like modding in single player games with multiplayer functionality, to have like more than one person play at a time. So like notoriously, like people have been wanting um like the From Software team to make a co-op Souls game. We kind of finally got that with Elden Ring Night Rain that came out more recently. But like for me personally, I don't want something that's like a spin-off. Like I don't want to play Fortnite Elden Ring, which is what Night
Yeah.
Rain is.
Yeah.
That didn't like interest me at all. But on the flip side, I love the idea of playing like a full Elden Ring campaign or a full Bloodborne campaign with a group of friends. And I especially like Matt and I played like Bloodborne together.
Hmm.
It's really fun when you play co-op, and you can also learn a lot if you're a novice to the game, by just playing with someone who knows like the location of items, knows where the trappings and everything is, and can teach you about like some of the mechanics and things like that. It's really helpful. And I think that for people who are going into those games in particular, who have no experience and just like die right away because it is a really hard game, it's nice to have somebody like alongside helping you. And before, with like Bloodborne and Dark Souls, everything is super clunky in terms of like getting your Wi-Fi and everything hooked up. So you can't really play those games like long term without spending a lot more time trying to connect to your partner. The mods, they are janky as hell. They might not work the best. My Moonlight Butterfly ain't look too good. I have footage of it. But playing with 4 people is such an enjoyable experience for those games, that it again like it reshapes the way that I enjoy like a Souls game. Um, yeah, let's I think that's all I gotta say. We could talk about Hi-Fi Rush now. Unless
Real
Emily go.
No, real quick. Two things. One about what you just said, one about what we're about to do. The thing about what you just said, I actually teach a whole day in my video game classes about single games that have multiplayer modes and multiplayer games that have single player options. Because that's actually like a really interesting thing to dig into, which I'm not gonna totally go into now, but like there's a lot to talk about there. So I think that's like a really neat thing. Both good and bad, because can be done super well, it can be done super poorly. But in regards to what we're about to do, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but for the comic stream that I do, so that we don't interrupt each other over Discord because of lag, in a chat, we do a button mash when someone wants to speak next, just so that that like cues up, you know, that when you're done, when the person who's currently talking finishes up whatever they're saying, like don't rush yourself. But when
Mhm.
that person finishes up, the next person is queued up to talk. And then, like, if someone wants to say something after, it's like after Nick, then, me.
By button mash, what do you mean exactly?
We literally, because we don't want to be looking at our phones,
Yeah.
so you don't want to be, like, typing. So it's literally just like, maybe click. And then if someone
That's
just
fair.
sent something while someone else is talking, you just know that they're queued up to talk next. We can
Okay.
do whatever system we want, but, like, I do think it's helped us a lot. Like having
Yeah,
some sort of like, I'm up next, I have something to say.
I
Mhm.
will do the good thing and make a group instead of spamming our chat, our loving chat that we're
Yeah.
in currently.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I figured that was gonna
Alex?
happen eventually, but I was also trying to keep it in there in case anyone like saw what we were doing and was interested.
Yeah, I guess you. Why can I not find you? Oh wait, Deepfire.
Excuse me.
Okay. The last thing I did want to say, one of
Okay.
the other funny games that I thought found out that was my thing lagging again. Like I'm like monitoring it and trying to like move my router thing to like be green.
This was my thing too.
Hello?
Is like this is low key like a trial thing for us to work out any kinks in terms of like how this is
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
work. So
Yeah.
Oh, real
Um,
quick, sorry. Sorry, Nick. Defaz, am I
yeah.
calling you by your first name or by your last name?
Oh, I mean you're calling Nick, so you can call me by my first name.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
um, so just real quick though, one of the other games that I really liked, and I think that it's such a funny one because it's called Final Fantasy Strangers
Oh, you cut out again.
Yeah.
of Paradise or Strangers of Final. No.
Stranger.
How
I
far?
heard.
How far we get?
I heard like Final Fantasy Strangers of Paradise, but it was kind of broken up.
Yeah. So there's this game that I really. Oh my god! I'd have
Damn.
to like hit the shit out of this computer. You know what? You're
Yeah.
scooting forward, buddy. You're coming closer to me.
You're scooting forward,
It's gonna be
bud.
on the left
Man.
edge here.
Is the
If it-
closest of your tower going to make that much of a difference?
I don't think so.
A man can try, you know.
Unless,
Just
is
try.
there a vent? Oh, there's a Pikachu. Is there a ventilation issue? Maybe, like, are you warm? Is it warm?
I'm not warm. I'm pretty good. It's weird because actually,
that was such a cute
funny en-
smirk.
funny enough, the
This
Oh
poor
my
man.
stream is
god!
running better because I'm running it now through the Discord web browser.
Yeah,
I
no,
might-
no.
The fucking
you're
comedic
s-
timing of it's running better because.
Okay. Do I have an alternative, but you guys would have to wait like 10 seconds for me to set it up.
I
Hey,
don't have
man.
10 seconds. I'm dying.
Oh, are you dying?
Legally.
Oh. Okay, then I'll stay here and we can all
Yeah, you're
suffer together.
you
Fine,
can
what
And
you
do
every
it,
got
time
to
I
man.
do?
say something.
Go
What
Yeah,
you
what I'm
got,
gonna
man?
do is I'm gonna set up my laptop and
join from there.
Ironically, you're working
Okay.
fine now, but I know if you address it,
They're
it's gonna.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna jinx it.
let's see. We'll talk about Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy for 10 seconds before I eventually die and explode again. So one of the things that I really thought was funny about the game was that when they trailered it, it was such a weird game because it was just this like white dude with like a like shaved head, and he said, "I'm going to fucking kill Chaos.
Oh,
I have to
yeah.
kill Chaos. Chaos fucked my wife, so I have to go and kill Chaos. Chaos ate my cereal one day, so I've got to kill him." And this is like how the trailer went for a very long period of time. So it doesn't give you any details about the game or anything about it. But the demo went live. People actually liked it, and I actually really like it. The story is dog shit, mind you. Like, it's so weird. They play like Limp Bizkit and then also Frank Sinatra in the game in like one of the cutscenes. It's such a strange thing. But what was funny was that I found out that there's a co-op mode in that game, and it is like one of the best running like Souls co-op things I've ever played, where it like had no downtime. It seamlessly syncs your games between each other so you can do the quests together,
Seamless.
and like it's just great. I was having so much fun, and like I was just playing with my friend, and we just kept joking because the main character's name is Jack Garland, so we just kept being like in our Discord messages like, it's time to jack off, it's time to jack off, it's time to jack off, like over and over again, and like sending these like really stupid pictures of Jack doing something. It's like, I guess it's like the way of try hard edgy, but it knows and it's aware of it, so I don't understand
Oh yeah, as,
what
as,
the tone
as
is
long
going
as it's
for.
self-aware, it works. You know, as long as it's intentional.
I guess it's just funny because like the whole game is supposed to be a prequel to the first Final Fantasy, and it's like, so you're telling me that in this world of fantasy wizards and dragons, some jackass is listening to Limp Bizkit?
You were telling me about this game. You have told me about
Yeah.
this game. Yeah. He's got like an iPod or something.
I feel
Yeah,
like
he's just got an iPod.
That's just kind of the energy of Final Fantasy in general, though. It's like they
More
just do
recently,
yeah, they just do fuck off energy and say, you know what, deal with it. I don't care. It's funny. Gives the giggles.
I've never played a Final Fantasy game, and I'm afraid to.
They're
I
good.
briefly
Emily,
played an
I've-
emulator of literally the first one, like the first.
Yeah, they're worth it. I think
Yeah.
that like it's been going through them, and he's been like trucking through them pretty fast.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, we can yap about that another time, but I
Yeah.
would definitely recommend them. I think it's just you gotta watch some stuff to know kind of where to start in terms of what you're looking for out of a game, but there's definitely something
Yeah.
there for you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, Hi-Fi Rush.
Essentially, the synopsis, the overarching plot of the story, is our main character Chai goes to Vandalay Industries. Industries, right? That's the name of the company, I think.
Yeah.
To join Project Armstrong, where he replacing one arm with a robotic component, so he can finally play guitar. He can finally be a rock star. But because he is deemed a defect, now the company wants to kill him. Initially, obviously, quality control comes after him. And then from there, he meets the head of a rebellion. At that point, it's just one person, Peppermint. And she kind of explains to him that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. And the two of them work their way up through the different department heads at Vandalay Industries, slowly kind of picking up strays here and there. The former head of R&D, Macron, joins them after he's kind of been...
I fucked you up.
Macron, Cookie.
I love the French president, Emmanuel Macron.
Macron,
Can we
I
have
don't know.
can we have a Macron like tally for how many times we're gonna say
Aw,
it in this
dude.
episode?
How many times you got this
Brutal.
poor Australian man, right? This poor guy's
No.
name wrong.
French.
No, but the character. I don't think he's French. I think he's Australian or like New Zealand or something. But anyway,
You're gonna get hate, bro.
the former head of R&D who lost his job. I'm pretty sure just because he wasn't doing what the company wanted, so they like kicked him out or kicked him down rather. Eventually, spoiler alert, you pick up Corsica, who is the head of security, who she kind of feels like there's something afoot. She doesn't quite click. She's pretty easy to flip against them until eventually you take on Kale, who, again, spoiler alert, is actually Peppermint's brother, who kind of like hid away. Later you find out mind controlled their mother, take over the company. And ultimately, Kale is trying to run this program that is going to mind control people in Project Armstrong, not to take over the world as you might expect, but just to convince them to buy more product. You take him down, unmind control Mom Vandalay, Dr. Vandalay, and our kind of band of misfits becomes the new board of directors at the company, hopefully pushing it in a more shared, better direction. So that's kind of our rough overview.
So let me bring up the fun wiki page so I can say the generic stuff about the game before I talk about the game.
Yes.
Do you want me? Should I read the Google summary of it? I
You
think
can
that's
do whatever you please, man.
okay. Hi-Fi Rush is a 2023 rhythm-based action game developed by Tango Gameworks and published by Bethesda Softworks. The game's story follows proclaimed future rock star Chai, Jesus Christ, whose music player is accidentally embedded in his chest during experimental cybernetic surgery, allowing him to rhythmically fight and perceive the world uh, uh, through stuff and things. There we go. For sure, that's exactly what I meant to say. So I guess to start off, I think that Hi-Fi Rush is a very cool game, and it's interesting because the studio before they had like started working on Hi-Fi Rush had been known for a lot of different kinds of horror games. I think like Shinji Mikami was like one of the people. I forget if he actually worked on the game as well. He's been known to be like one of the biggest horror game producers of all time, big horror game director. And he worked on games like Evil Within 2, and eventually started working on Hi-Fi Rush. So this was such a different ballpark
Mm-hmm.
for the director, but maybe not so much. And the reason I want to talk about this too is because if you know a little bit about the history of like Capcom, they had I think a studio called Cloverworks and a couple other things along the way. So you get a lot of people from like Platinum working on like those games like Beautiful Joe or Devil May Cry. Um, so in that division, you know, he's probably working on the Resident Evil games and titles like that. But it's interesting that like he finally, I guess, like decided to take his a hand or approach towards Hi-Fi Rush, and it was for all the right reasons. Everything was great. I actually really like it. Um, but other things to just kind of like note about it, I wanted to talk a little bit about just like how this game got advertised. It basically got dropped on one of those like Xbox presentations randomly. It no one knew about it. It was like dropped. It got a commercial, and then essentially the game was out. They said it was like finished. Go and play the game. And I think it was kind of lost for a little bit, but funny enough, one of the weird things that happened, and I mentioned this before, was that like at the same time the game Forspoken came out, and people really hated that game. I do attribute it like there's a lot of different reasons. I think the writing is here and there. I'll also say that it probably played a little bit into sexism and other things like that. But I think one of the things that they really brought up was the fact that it's like the idea of what like a board of directors would find funny versus something that people would naturally find funny. And so the
Mm-hmm.
comparisons like kept going and going and going, and I would see people saying like, "Oh, Hi-Fi Rush is actually a very funny game." And eventually it kind of took shape into its own natural advertising campaign where, you know, it felt like Bethesda kind of just like pushed it out thinking that they wouldn't get any feedback, it wouldn't get any notoriety. But then from natural word of mouth and like I guess like a natural advertising campaign, it was able to pick up steam very quickly and a lot of people started to play it. And plus with like things like Xbox Game Pass, people were able to play the game for free, well, for free, but they were able more
Mm-hmm.
people were able to get their hands on it, get some more eyes on it. And now it's kind of become a cult classic. But sad thing is that Bethesda Softworks decided that they were going to close a whole bunch of studios down, and Tego GameWorks was actually one of those studios. So after producing this massive hit of a game, they were basically told, "You're not allowed to make this game anymore. We have your IP. You can't do anything with it." And fans were really angry because they essentially got this like experience out of nowhere, and now they were never going to get a sequel, they were never going to get a follow-up. And I, as we've kind of all played the game, there's a lot that can be done with Hi-Fi Rush, and I think with a sequel. um and going into little spoilers about some of the extra content, there are leads and teasers for what a sequel game would end up looking like. But there was essentially radio silence after like Bethesda and I think Microsoft decided to just like close a bunch of studios. So where do we end up? We end up with just kind of Hi-Fi Rush just sitting out in the open. But people were so angry about it that eventually they decided that they are going to make a sequel. But I don't know what that's going to look like, what the studios are going to look like, and it's kind of scary because like I don't know if even the same people who worked on the original game are even going to be working on a sequel for this game. So there's a lot going into it, but that's just the general summary of Hi-Fi Rush, and I hope I gave you guys a good background to talk about it.
Yeah, that's all really interesting. I feel like I was most surprised when you said that the studio has roots in horror games, or the director specifically. That, like, to go from that to then, one of the things I felt like I picked up on, and the game does this very successfully, is it just feels like I was playing through a Saturday morning cartoon, which is like the exact opposite if you're playing like a horror game. So I feel like that gives me new appreciation for what they were able to accomplish in something that they were doing for really like the first time. It wasn't their forte, like they had done this kind of game multiple times, and this was just like another one in the bunch that, you know, came out very well. I also feel like it's interesting talking about like shadow dropping, because sometimes that can work very well for marketing. Like most recently with Oblivion, there was like a huge amount of buzz leading up to that about, oh, this is getting shadow dropped. Like obviously that's a different kind of situation. Elder Scrolls is a very well-known franchise, and people, you know, have been clamoring for an Oblivion remake for a very long time, so it delivered on that hype, and it was kind of built off of the leak as well. But, you know, shadow drops can work, but it may be a little more difficult for something if it's like, you know, this from a studio where, like I just said, you know, they're doing something like completely different than even what fans of that studio may be aware of. So I think that's interesting, and I feel like I had other points, but they're trailing off now, so I will leave the floor. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, so in kind of my pre-call research, I had seen that Tango, the developers of Hi-Fi Rush, had been rescued in 2024. Had been rescued last year by Krafton, and based on from what I could see, Krafton is going to be able to support future Hi-Fi Rush projects. So it might even be the original, at least the original developer, whether or not the individuals are still with the developer, not know. So it looks like we have that at least. But no, I definitely want to like second Matt's comment about Saturday morning cartoons. Because I was a little hesitant when I started playing. This was actually the first rhythm game that I've ever really played. I think everyone played a little Guitar Hero as kids, and like
Yeah.
I've dabbled with Crypt of the Necrodancer, but I'd never really like committed to playing a rhythm game. And so between that and like when I started playing some of the humor, I was like, oh, like I don't know if this is something that like it felt a little, and I don't know if this is going to be blasphemous, like Marvel-y to me,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not a fan of that like very on the nose humor. But I think this was paired with enough like interesting characterizations. It didn't feel super canned or super staged. Like it still felt
Yeah.
fairly natural. The voice acting was really good. So even though like sometimes there's a little eye rolling going on, it never felt like it was too much. It felt like kind of the kind of corny that's Saturday morning cartoon, a
Yeah.
little bit dad jokey, within the realm of acceptability. And definitely for me, like some of the strongest things were very much the characters and the characterizations. So from a writing perspective, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I think that's like it plays onto what Nick was saying about how this came out around the same time as Forspoken, and you were saying how in that it was very much more like humor for a corporate boardroom, whereas for Hi-Fi Rush, there's something just about the writing that it comes off more as just snappy and like it just hits a lot better. It feels more genuine. I feel like there's subtleties that players can just pick up on of when something feels forced, whereas where it's coming from, you know, like a real place of heart and passion. Um, yeah.
So I was gonna say too that I think that I I haven't personally. I don't want to talk badly because I think we mentioned this before about Forspoken, but I have watched like a bit of the gameplay and a bit of the writing, and I can kind of see where people are coming. It feels like the it feels like totally different where the story is just kind of like running along, and it feels like the writers just are kind of adding things without having like a clear cohesive, I guess, like plot to it.
Hmm.
Versus with like Hi-Fi Rush, I feel like things are also happening in the very same manner, but it's like so ridiculous and so like over the top that it's just kind of fun and very weird when you get to a different plot point. Like you have like the defund mechanism that we could talk about later,
Yeah.
the defund meter and things like that. But I kind of want to go back to talking about the visuals because I do really love Hi-Fi Rush's visuals. There was a lot of things that I wanted to mention and pick up on. One of the first things that I really like about it is that it's utilizing cell shading. I
Hmm.
think for a game, if you want it to kind of withstand the test of time, for several generations, if you are ever going to use a visual style, I always think cell shading is one of the best styles you can do to make something kind of withstand that test of time. Like games like Wind Waker, for example, still look very pretty,
That's true.
and I don't know how old that game is. It's like 20 years. I don't know. I'm gonna date myself, but it's okay. Um, games like Jet Set Radio also look really good. But
Hmm.
I kind of wanted to mention too that there seem to be both like American influences as well as a lot of Japanese influences on the style and tone. So, for example, we could say that since you mentioned before that it was kind of like that Marvel quippiness in terms of the writing, I think that like the visual styles really reminded me a lot of a Marvel comic as well,
Hmm.
because not only do you have like just the regular panels, but occasionally you'll have animated sections,
Yeah.
and then they'll break out into these like freeze frames, and all of a sudden it'll be like a panel from a comic book just put out there. And going into even like the visuals of the game themselves, a lot of times I was noticing like those, I think they're called Steve Ditko dots, like when you
Oh,
look at,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So you can see like Steve Ditko dots in the way that they're shading a lot of the actual gameplay itself. And I also noticed like things like chromatic aberration, which looked really cool when he's like kind of dashing along. All these like visual
Hmm.
details that make it feel more like a Saturday morning cartoon, like a comic book. But at the same time, the visuals also reminded me a lot of an anime called Fooly Cooly, where a lot of the aesthetics, just the whole bunch of the aesthetics, especially like the guitar idea of like Chai like swinging around like a guitar, that's ripped exactly from Fooly Cooly. The first time I had ever seen it was when Haruko is like running like her moped towards this kid named Nauta, and she fucking clocks him in the head with a bass guitar. And I was just, that was like when I saw that that was going to be Chai's weapon of choice for the rest of the game, I was like, this is such a funny way to kind of like, I guess, connect that idea or property. And I guess too, I love the visual language of the characters. I think that out of all of them, I wasn't the biggest fan of the way Chai looked when I first saw him. I'm not a big fan of those like bright yellow colors that are on his jacket, but they help you like visualize his silhouette so well that I never minded them later on. And especially that red scarf like really helped me kind of like see and like keep track of him on screen. And I
Hmm.
loved like the way that all the other characters have their primary colors as well. Like Peppermint has blue, Corsica has red, and
Yeah.
Macron has green. And it helped me, especially like during combat, like even if I wasn't able to see a specific frame, just know like who was going to appear next just by quickly referencing like colors and things like that. Um, and I just thought it was really neat.
Yeah, I think all that makes a lot of sense about the specific colors for characters. I also think on the note about just the art style in general, I'm I've kind of grown on different art styles for a while. I feel like I was really into the whole like super photorealism, like get the best graphics possible. Obviously there's a lot more to a game, but like we're at a point now where you can have games that are basically like what you would have out of a movie or a TV show in terms of graphical fidelity, and it can work depending on the situation for what you're doing. But I feel like playing other games that have such a different art style has just lent more appreciation to different kinds in games. Like Final Fantasy VII, like the first time I saw pre-rendered backgrounds, and this is a good point for you, Emily, like if you want to look at that at all, those things are beautiful. And it was made out of necessity at the time because they were trying to cram so much shit into a CD, even though they needed three of them still. But that's the thing. It's like, you know, sometimes the best art is created by forced circumstances, and I think that is a great example of that. But I totally dug what Hi-Fi Rush was doing with the cell shading. I think that's a really good point in terms of like being able to shelf the game for so long, and 20 years from now, like it'll still look just as good. Whereas other things, even the like highest fidelity things we have now, are gonna seem kind of silly in 2 decades, or maybe not, because graphics have sort of what's the word for it? There's been a diminishing return in terms of how much we can push each generation. So we'll see with that. But yeah, cell shading is still going to look great even 2 decades from now.
Yeah, and I mean, like you guys are saying, I'm a big believer in the philosophy, and I know this a little bit more from like animation and whatnot. But stylized things never age, right? CGI trying to be hyper realistic, like that looks corny, but something like a stylized practical effect, that is always going to look as it's supposed to. It's always going to look stylized. So while the hyper realistic can be very cool in some instances, in decades from now, it's going to look cheesy or stilted or weird. That's just how that goes. But I do also think, like, and I haven't played Forspoken, I haven't seen Forspoken played, but I do think that, like, I think part of the reasons why maybe the humor works a little bit better with Hi-Fi Rush is because it does take stylistically from the comic genre. It does take stylistically from animation, from anime. I know Nick and I have jammed a little bit about, there's like JoJo references in this. Like, for example, with the second boss, he is not just a mild JoJo reference.
It's aggressive.
He quite literally JoJo. Yeah, he just the weird posing that he does are literally frame by frame some of the Japanese characters behind him, like mean menacing, which is a thing from JoJo. His voice actor, Japanese voice actor, is one of the voice actors for JoJo, and Kale too. Actually, Kale's voice actor in Japanese is Dio Brando's voice actor.
Oh,
that's Dio. That's Dio, baby.
That's a cool fact. I like that.
Yeah. And there are a lot of references throughout this too. It's kind of like a spot the reference situation. But I think because like stylistically it's cartoony, it's comic-y, you can have that humor as opposed to maybe something that has, a little bit more visual grit to it. Mm-hmm. That humor is a little dissonant, maybe comes across as a little bit corny. But to the point of the like visuals and whatnot, something that I always pay attention to is color accessibility and colorblind modes. Because I myself am colorblind and I have mild hearing impairment. So, I was playing around with their accessibility stuff. And I was really happy with the options. They had options in terms of for color blindness. the different kinds of color blindnesses, of which there are several. It's not one size fits all. And not only did they have different options for different types of color blindness, but there was a slider for how intense you needed it. So I was really kind of able to like zero in a bit, and that does help a lot. And then in terms of like audio, like I've got auditory processing issues, and I've like got one ear I can really hear out of, the other one not so much. And for a rhythm game, that's tricky.
Yeah.
But at least I play, and this was a point of contention. I play on keyboard and mouse. I wasn't gonna bring it up, but it is relevant for this. It's relevant for this because I don't know the keybinds on controller. If you hit tab on the stock keybinds for keyboard and mouse, it brings up a visualizer at the bottom of the screen that shows the beats as they go by, and throughout the whole game, the environment pulses to the rhythm of whatever the track is.
Yeah.
Our main character, Chai, snaps along to the beat as well. So there's a ton of visual indicators, a ton of audio indicators, as well as, like, again, additional accessibility features that they've, baked into the game that try to help you as much as possible. And also, as I learned with the final boss, if you lose enough times, there is a pop-up that happens where they have an additional accessibility mode. Yeah, which was pretty cool, where if you're having a hard time getting combos down, so things that involve maybe fine motor skill, fine timing, stuff like that, which again, people do struggle with, they have a mode you can turn on where if you can just repeatedly put in one input, it will automatically do combos for you, which I think is a really, really cool accessibility feature, just because anything that lets more people experience a game, some people want a challenge, but some people just, to be able to play a game, that's really meaningful. So the fact that they have all of these individual things to help folks out is really cool. The one last thing that I want to say about the style, which was something that I struggled with throughout, I loved all the character designs. I thought they were really cool. Some little like nitpicks here and there with different characters, some things that I really liked here and there with different characters. But the one thing I couldn't fucking get over is, and as we have Matt wearing Chai's face down there, Chai looks like the dude from the Dragon Prince, like straight up. And I could.
I'm gonna need to Google that real quick, but
yeah, look up the main character from the Dragon. I could not fucking get over that. It looks like if Hiccup and whatever that guy's name is like had a baby, and I'm just looking at this guy the whole game. It's driving me nuts.
Is the Dragon Prince like snarky in the show? Because I know it's the same voice as like
oh
Sokka
yeah,
from
it totally
Avatar.
looks like him.
So is it like the same thing where like tonally and like?
No, it's not as bad. Like here and there, definitely in later seasons, it leans a little more on that. I stopped watching in later seasons. I'd say it's more like like the tone is like Avatar, and that particular character is kind of the straight man a little bit. Which is kind of weird to have a straight man Sokka, but it worked.
I was gonna say that I think it's interesting that you brought up accessibility options, because I feel like when I like started to try to play this genre of games, I guess they're called character action. I hate that term because it describes literally nothing. But when you try to play like character action games or like fighting games in general, one of the things that I always found really hard was that they would kind of give you like a list of, well, they wouldn't even give you like a list of commands. You'd kind of just have to figure it out very early on, like the things that how you could do them. I remember like booting up Devil May Cry 3 for the first time, and like I did really enjoy that game, but like having to kind of like figure out like what combos were good in what situation always kind of left me feeling that I was always missing something, and seeing people perform at such a high level, I guess, gave me a lot of anxiety when it came to jumping into those games long term. But I feel with like Hi-Fi Rush, it's such a great way to start and learn both like a character action and a rhythm game, because they do a good job of tutorializing a lot of that stuff early on with like the way that they show initially, like when you first boot up the game, they show you like some basic combos, both like a light and heavy combo, but on it they show like that whole screen of like when to hit each beat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really useful to just like start learning the timings early. And I found myself like, because they did such a good job of like walking me through it early on, I would start to try to explore the system a little bit more. I would spend a lot of time within the practice rooms trying to like practice air combos and trying to learn like more ground combos and things like that. And I always felt like the game was very good at telling me and teaching me how to do each of these combos, each of these movements without necessarily like babying me through everything. Like they did have a funny thing that was kind of did you guys see the tutorial bot? That was like the way.
Yeah,
But
I
even
love
even
him.
that but even that's super goofy, and if you ignore him, you even get like a special dialogue where he's like, "I'm useless to you. You hate me, right?" Like, and you're just like,
Oh. And actually, sorry
Incredible.
if I could just cut in real
Yeah,
quick.
you're good.
Uh, to that point, the fact that you can miss the beat constantly
Yeah.
in the game, and you will always attack on the beat, but you get a little bit more damage, a little extra bonus if you attack on the beat. So even if you cannot nail the rhythm whatsoever, you can, in theory, still complete the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say too, like with the because you had mentioned before with the actual sounds and like chai visually like snapping and clapping and all that stuff, you also get a pretty good indicator of like when enemies are gonna attack because you could see them wind up. You'll usually see like a little spark marker if you're paying attention to them before they're about to hit you. And you even hear like they mix it to the audio of the track, like a wind up sound for it, which is so cool because it like hearing that along with it makes it like even if you're not facing an enemy, it can kind of save you in specific instances. I think there are just problems with cameras in general. I think character action games tend to have that problem, but think that like just being able to perceive that an enemy is going to attack you even if you can't see them visually is such an interesting way of going about that that kind of helped me later on when I was getting like swarmed by things. I was just like, all right, we're just parrying now.
Parry bot. Yeah,
Yeah, parry.
I definitely second what you're saying about the tutorialization and that honestly being like the catalyst for me entering the practice range because I felt like the way that the first level went is that it taught me the basic like the light and heavy attacks and by the end of that level I already felt like okay, like I understand kind of when the beat's hitting and I'm getting the feel for this. So when there was more things introduced, I felt A, more comfortable with it, and B, then that made me more interested in like, okay, I have all these other attacks that I can try. Let me try to learn those. And even all my time of my career in Smash Ultimate, I did never I never wanted to go in the lab because it just felt like
We
work
do not
and
bring up Smash Ultimate in this film.
there's some lore there. There's some lore there we won't get into, but it's like I never wanted to do that as a player for those games because it just felt like work and it just went against what I was enjoying when I was playing that game. But with Hi-Fi Rush, it was like, no, I'm going to voluntarily spend the first like 10 to 15 minutes of my session hopping into this practice range because I want to be able to actually like use, you know, what I just unlocked on command when I'm going through the level. I will say, as a slight counter to that, that as the game goes on and you just keep unlocking more and more abilities, it becomes a lot more easier to just mash because it's like, well, something's gonna happen. It doesn't really matter, but
you're gonna get at one of the combos.
yeah,
right?
like he's gonna throw his guitar, or like I don't know, Peppermint's gonna pop out and like smack someone in the face. Like you'll get something, but I definitely will say that like it built up core knowledge, and there was a solid like maybe 7 to 10 attacks that I was using, definitely more than others, but I wasn't just like spamming the same thing over and over. I felt like I was using a solid amount of variance. So I think that deserves a lot of props to the team for that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to honestly, to the point of mashing, to be frank, most of the attacks that I did were just like I just smacked my keyboard
Yeah.
like an angry office worker. Um, no, I mean, like, most of what I did was the basic attack and the hard heavy attack.
Mhm.
To be honest, because like there were a couple of times when I played the game and then I took a couple of days break. And I
Yeah.
don't know about you guys, but like I just forget things. And at that point I was like, I'm doing fine with this, and then with the assists, the character assists that were coming in. Um right up until like the Kale fight, like the final boss fight, I think like 3 stages into it, and it was a combination of really bad visual clutter, which I will say with some of the bosses was an issue, at least for me. Just so much shit happening around their character that it was a little it's a little bit tricky sometimes to kind of like parry, because okay, like trying to listen through everybody yelling out there like, I got you, what's his face,
Macaron.
I got
Right.
you, Chai, I'm here,
Yeah.
Chai, and then like the fucking flashing lights over the boss, I'm like, I can't see
Yeah.
or hear anything. um but I'm
You just
doing
gotta
that
get
fight,
past them.
and we have a group chat that we're like talking about this in, and I went there to complain a little bit, and Matt had popped in because I was streaming the game as I was playing it. And Matt popped into my stream and was like, "You need to button mash more than you are."
Yeah.
And then I frankly just like kept hitting every key simultaneously, and I think I died once, and then I beat the boss. I beat him after
Yeah.
that. I'm like, I don't know if that's how that should work, but it did.
I will say I think it just depends on the actual difficulty that you're playing under. Because when I was playing it, shit did not fly.
Yeah.
If I
I was on
started,
normal. I was on
yeah,
normal.
because I played this game initially on hard, and I kind of like had a tough time with it. I had an easier time with it playing on ultra hard, but then I remembered like late game, motherfucker, if I wasn't like hitting my buttons correctly, it's just instant death. So I was like really practicing time and execution, and I still died like a million times. I don't think ever saw like a straight A rank ever. I think the highest I may have gotten was like a B rank total.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, I think that the combat is really great. I think that I do have some minor gripes with it. And I feel like there's two sides of this. Because on one side, I think it's really well done. I think it's easy to learn. And I think that for people who want to challenge themselves and learn more, there's other mechanics like in Devil May Cry where you can cancel attacks to like extend combos, which isn't something that the game necessarily, well, I think it is something that the game promotes, but it's not something that's shown to you. You'd kind of have to like look it up and kind of learn from other people how you can do those specific kinds of combos. And it's interesting to see like how people like make different combos. I think there was, I forget what his name is. I think it's Beeg, but I
Mm,
always like
yeah.
watch his videos, or their videos, sorry, on YouTube, and I love seeing how they essentially like create different kinds of combos and things, where I would never expect you to kind of do that. But going into more complaints about the game, I think I do have a couple nitpick picks. Um, like you mentioned a couple times, there's a lot of visual like clutter or like things that distract me. Even during like some of the boss fights that I really liked, like Rogue for example, seeing all those like gold things fly by like kind of visually took my eyes off of the boss, even though he does have a really good silhouette and he does contrast really nicely against the gold. I think that like visual stimulation kind of distracted me a little bit when I should have been more focused on the fight itself. But from there too, I'd also like to mention that, going back to the idea of the camera being an issue, I really wish that this game had a lock-on feature. Games like Kingdom Hearts 2, Devil May Cry, they all have a lock-on feature so that you could specifically target enemies. And there were times where I was playing on ultra hard where I would have my enemy like locked in, and I would be like trying to target like maybe one of the lasers, and sometimes I would hit like a normal troop or like a boss enemy or like a stronger enemy that I didn't want to be attacking into. And this also contributed to the actual partners and assists as well, where uh for example, Peppermint shoots lasers, and they break like blue shields. Macron can break like green shields, and then Corsica can literally put out fires, which is a hilarious joke in and of itself because that's what her job is, to
Yeah.
put out fires.
Oh.
Pretty cool. You got that?
No, no, no. Your camera just stopped for a sec, and I was like, "Wow, we've been doing a streak for so well." But I won't say anything else. Knock on wood that it just stays good.
Um, so seeing that like the assists like work, I've never been a super big fan of timers and cooldowns. Um, Especially during fights like that where like at some points like a lot of enemies start having shields, so having to wait a specific amount of time where I'm just avoiding enemies and not really contributing to the fight always made me just a little bit peeved off at the combat, because I'd rather have more of a say in the flow of battle. Because like with the blue shields, for example, I think you can actually crack those with your bat, but like with the green shields you can't, so it makes it
Mhm.
pretty frustrating because you have to essentially wait for Macron to kind of come back online. So pretty much my whole playthrough was like I used all of my guitar chips, which is like a customizable thing within the game to like improve your character's stats in a different way, except for one of them that doesn't, but maybe does because it gives you a lock on, which is confusing. Um, but I basically made it so that all my cooldowns were like super quick. So I basically had all my cooldowns really quick, and then my ult attack was just a healing move, which is
Yeah.
the best ult, and you should use it the entire way through because there's no reason to use any other. Because when I did end up feeling frustrated that I got hit by an enemy, it still allowed me to recover. Um, when I was like low on HP, so I never felt like I was super uh super worried. The first time I played the game, I didn't know about this ultimate ability, so I didn't use it. But now that I do know about it, that was like one of the things that like helped me feel a little less frustrated. But I just wish that they weren't on cooldowns in general, just because it felt so bad like dying out of random because I locked onto someone else with one of my abilities that has a cooldown, and then I just died out of nowhere because I just got hit by
Yeah.
something that maybe couldn't see. And there were times like that. But for the most part, I'd say that like I really did not have that issue 100% of the time, and I think that's very important. 95% of the time I was rocking, maybe like 5-10% of that I was like getting comboed
Mhm.
by an enemy.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty solid for like highest difficulties. I feel like
Yeah.
that's a thing devs often really struggle for unless it's a studio that's known like for difficult games specifically, because it's like essentially they have to take the build that is balanced so well for what the actual player intended experience is, and then they have to figure out how to warp it. So it's like, okay, are we just gonna make like enemies more challenging? Are we gonna like nerf the player? Like, there's a lot of different things. I mean, we could probably do a whole episode about difficulty, but what I was also gonna say is that for the ult, talking about the heal, that was like super essential to my run as well. I think
Yeah.
I after I got that, I think it was like the second or latest like third level, and then I pretty much just like rocked with that for a majority of the game. I remember I did one of the upgrades to have two like chip slots or whatever, like two
Yeah.
attacks. So I had the heal, and then I would kind of rotate the other one out as like an offensive one. So I used the I can't remember the name of it, but it was like described as Chai's strongest attack, and he like
Yeah. I think
goes
it's
into a
Hibiki.
little yes, thank you. It
Hibiki.
was
Yeah.
Hibiki.
That's
Um,
also a fun visual aesthetic too. If you look at his belt loop, it also says Hibiki on the side too.
ooh
So it's like,
yeah,
oh.
Yeah. But that was kind of my like go to in terms of the attacks and everything. And then I will also ask like so in terms of difficulty of what they do for this, what was it exactly? Is it on the setting you are at? Like what are the
Well,
switches from normal?
what I'd say about the difficulty that I really liked was I felt like this was one of those games that was balanced really well. I think that difficulty didn't come from the enemies because enemies you could hit just like normal, but what difficulty came from was like you definitely died much faster than you probably should have. And so like a lot of the times you have to really be paying attention to the enemies and their attacks or else like sometimes they can like hit you 3 times in a row, 3 different enemies and it could just kill you in one shot. I think that you had kind of a better bolster with the other difficulties, but this one it was like it's life or death. You really have to be paying attention or else you just kind of get flopped very fast. And
Okay.
especially what I'll say is like with parrying later on, parrying like if you miss those, you just auto lose. Like some of those things you have to like really be focused on. Um Especially like when the enemies actually get these like kind of call out attacks later on where they like go and then they'll like shoot out like this like kind
Oh
of
yeah.
circular web around them and you're supposed to get hit by those. Fun fact, you can actually parry them if you really do not want to do them. You can parry them twice and then just fight the enemy outright. It like destroys your time, but like you can do it if you just really don't want to do them. And I would get hit by those and it's really dangerous because a lot of the times there would be situations where I would have like a decent amount of life to actually like fight most amounts of enemies. But if I took enough damage from those like parrying mini games that they have, I would just outright die. So sometimes it just got really funny where it was like, oh, I pulled this insane clutch where I have like 1 HP and like I parried everything. Or it was like, oh, cool, I just died because I couldn't parry
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, and just like a quick question I have, I have something else to say about ults, but a question for you. So do the like rhythm quick time events change at all, or are those like do they add more inputs or faster or like any of that?
I would say maybe we should check and compare footage between like the two inputs for this section because I don't really know. I know that they were pretty complicated.
Yeah, my
I was
my
saying that.
thought is that they would be different, and the biggest difference would be that there is a lot more of the ones where you have to dodge as opposed to parrying. Like the
Mm,
different kind of arrow that I think comes
Yeah,
up when
yeah,
you fight Corsica is the
yep.
first
yeah,
time. So
yeah.
maybe okay. I guess this may be something you'd be able to answer. Then, do you remember that coming up earlier, or was it still initiated at the Corsica
Well,
fight?
it's initiated at the Corsica fight, but I think they introduce it more to combat. Like you'll see
Yeah,
it more often.
because I think
But
I
like
only got that maybe like once or twice after, and then the Kale fight, but it didn't feel like it was utilized very often. When I had the parry stuff, it was
yeah.
really just like get the timing down of the parry. Don't worry about switching to a different mechanic mid rhythm.
Yeah, I mean that it probably did give me more of those like I was calling them like little corkscrews
Yeah.
whenever I saw them. Like they're like purple like zigzags. I think they probably did throw in more. I do think that the rhythms were probably a little bit faster too, and I think there were a lot of inputs. But I'm not sure between the two because again, like I played this game on hard and then I played it on ultra hard, so like
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's different between like normal, but I remember in both times that I played the game that there were a lot of inputs that you had to remember.
Yeah.
And I kind of love those though. Like it's so interesting like having those like moments where like the game kind of stops and like you just have to focus on the rhythm because it really does put you in the mindset with the rest of the game for like listening to music, which is like the most important thing about this game.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the soundtrack itself, like too, like having so many different types of rhythms, it's always interesting because like it moment to moment it kind of changes your gameplay as well. Because on one level you'll have like a faster track, so like you can be hitting out combos really fast, or like you'll get a slower track or a medium pace, and like the flow of combat changes for each of those songs. So it's just really, really cool how it's done. I think one of the more notable ones, I mentioned this to you because I was like, there's like my favorite level in a game, which is the one where they start playing Amoid Chainsaw. Like when I heard that song, because again, like the actual a lot of the music for this game is really a lot of American rock. I think like
Hmm.
Nine Inch Nails comes up like twice for the first and the last song. You get the end credits song is by Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins. It's his other band I don't remember the name of off the top of my head. And then you also get like what was the not Hello World. What was the name of it? It was
For what
you know
are you trying to say?
the last stage right before you fight Kale. I forget the name of the song.
Oh, isn't it? It's the one that I was like raving about, right? I
Yeah,
think
I
that's what I
that
have
one.
in my
So,
notes.
do you know what I'm talking about, Emily? The song from that level?
So I assume
Uh,
when we talk about music, we're going to talk
Oh,
about
okay.
this. I played streamer mode, so I had
yeah.
totally different music from
No,
you.
I think
you
some
missed.
of
Okay,
your songs were the same as ours. I don't know if it was an
Oh, really?
yeah,
entirely different soundtrack, but
yeah.
yeah, you definitely have ones that we didn't hear.
But
I think you're talking about "Worrying" by the Joy Formidable.
Whirring, yeah, by Joy
Yeah,
Formidable.
that shit slapped. I'm sorry, I have to mention that.
Yeah, no, you're good. That song is so good. But my favorite was like a Moid Chainsaw because that shit blew my mind because it was like we heard a lot of American rock and then like just hearing like a Japanese rock track. Like I was talking about earlier with like Foolie Cooley with the whole vibe there. One of the nicest things about Foolie Cooley is that it takes its soundtrack and it utilizes it for the television show, so you're both like kind of watching a music video and like listening to us and like watching a story unfold at the same time. And that's how I kind of felt when I was like playing through that little cutscene and everything's on fire and you're like rolling down like a big glass panel. And it was just so sick how they were able to combine those two things, like audio and visual, so seamlessly in so many different ways. Like I was blown away, like not only combat but just like seeing it within just platforming. I was having a lot of fun.
Yeah, in regards to the combat where you're talking about, I feel like for me playing Clair Obscur during the same month as this, I just kept seeing like a lot of parallels where it's like both had just like really really good music and both were using parries and really like the whole like specific mini game part of when we're talking about the corkscrews and the other like dodge you have to do or parry for specific enemies. Like that's basically what like you're doing in every fight of Clair Obscur. So like I feel like it's just kind of whack to me that between those two games, I feel like I had this epiphany where I was like, wow, I actually really like rhythm games and I really like parry mechanics, but I just like didn't have a game yet that had
Yeah,
told me about that, but I've been enlightened and I'm gonna continue my journey about it.
it
But
was so
yeah,
unique.
I just want. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You're good.
No, I'm just saying it was so unique the way that when this game came out and like how it handled combat, because it just felt like those things were always a part of games like Devil May Cry where you'd have like a cool soundtrack, or like if you're mentioning like things like Guilty Gear Strive for example, where you have these really cool soundtracks, but like the fighting game mechanics are separate. It was just like somebody was just probably like playing one of those games and they're like, what if I just time the button presses to the song? Like how would this change the way that the game is played? And just such a simple thought could evolve into such a complex mechanic that can carry an entire game, where I feel like this would just be kind of like a gimmick in other games. Here it's like such a prime focus that it made me excited to pick up and play and learn each song and each rhythm every time I picked it up.
Yeah, and I do think that like that rhythm, that like I mean rhythm game, but you know that idea of like do hitting buttons or jumping or doing a quick time event to a particular rhythm like the whole game has a really, really strong, I don't want to say brand identity, but like really strong identity. From like the aesthetics of like you play a rock star and kind of everyone has a little bit of a like, yeah, punk doesn't feel correct, but like a little bit of that like alt rock vibe to it. And the music fits really well, and just having everything in time to a beat, not just like your attacks and everything, but have that blend so seamlessly into, again, like the world is pulsing along with you. He's always kind of snapping. Like you can't separate the soundtrack from the game without both of them being greatly diminished. They require them. And I know that like a big part of that is the early plot point on where the game starts because Chai has some sort of disability with one of his arms. It's his left arm, is that correct?
Let's look at the picture. It is the right arm.
It is the right arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I would say too, cool thing about it is that pretty much all of the characters in this game actually are disabled, which is very nice. That was like
Yeah.
a cool thing. Not brought up a lot in it, but I thought it was really neat.
Yeah.
All of the characters have some sort of like assistive technology, be it an arm, a leg. I think several in Macron's case.
Yeah. Corsica is like spoilers for Corsica. Corsica wasn't disabled, but
Yeah.
like after an incident where Kale like basically explodes the shit out of like both Chai and her, she also I think becomes disabled because she has like a heart thing, and I think her heart would have stopped without the device that was built upon like the original Vandalay technology. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, she has like a cardiovascular implant or something, which is super cool. But yeah, so he like Chai goes to get like a new arm through Project Armstrong, so that he can be a rock star. He wants to like be able to use both arms so that he can learn how to play guitar. It's very clear that he does not know how to play guitar. So him getting that arm is like a big part of it. He doesn't know that the program he's slated for is to become a trash collector. It's a magnetic arm, and that becomes, how he can make his like scrap metal guitar, how he can shoot through the air, to like grappling hook onto things. But the rhythm comes because early on in a cutscene, one of the like early cutscenes, as he's going through the machinery to replace his arm, Kale picks up his belongings and he's got like an iPod situation in there. And Kale just kind of, who is a useless character, not useless character, but it's
I
like,
love him.
he's a ditz. He's a fucking ditz, is the best way I can put it.
His whole purpose is just like you think he's like some big fucking villain, and then he's just like, no, I just wanted to sell iPhones to you. And it's like the
Yeah.
funniest fucking thing to me.
Yeah, like the whole mind control situation that comes from this program isn't because he wants to rule the world. It's because he doesn't want to put the time into proper marketing. So he wants to just like mind control you into whichever product you were already gonna buy. That's
And
it.
it's so funny too, because like every character's like, oh my god, he's gonna take over the world using
Doesn't want
Vandalay
to.
technology, and he's like, do you know how hard it is to sell things to people? And I was like, this is the fucking funniest game of all time.
Kale's like,
But,
have
like-
you seen TikTok Shop? I can't compete with that shit.
He's got that TV online.
It's legitimately like if Jeff Bezos like maybe was dumber. I don't know, but this whole game could have been avoided. The whole issue that Kale causes for himself is that Chai is deemed a defect because his iPod gets lodged in whatever weird panini press he's put in to give him his new arm. So like he's a defect product, and they try to catch him because he's a defect. They can't have defects, and then this spurs him to join and push the rebellion. The iPod winds up in the panini press because Kale looks at it, says this is stupid, and throws it away, and it lands on Chai's chest as he's pressed. And then that's where this rhythm from the game comes from, is and it's not really explained. It's kind of left as a little bit of like a hand wave of like, oh yeah, now the whole world is just pulsing to you, and you
Yeah.
can see this, and you occasionally hallucinate that you're on a stage.
Cool. It is cool though that visually too, because of that, like your like super meter is like you being electrocuted and like just like weird energy charge ups
Yeah.
and build up. It aesthetically like really matches the world. And it was cool too, just like I'll come back. Matt, I want you to talk.
Yeah,
I have to think about this a little more.
I was gonna say about the whole disability note, like the best inclusion that something can have in media is when it's just brought up naturally instead of like a big fucking glowing sign like, see guys, look, we're doing the thing. We have disabled people in the game because we're being inclusive. Like, it's just there and it makes sense as part of the story. It feels organic and natural, and I think that's the best way that, I don't want to speak for those people or any marginalized group, but like that's in my head how you can best represent those kinds of people.
Yeah.
Um,
And they did a similar thing too. I was at the very end with like Corsica and Peppermint, like
yeah,
a little bit, like a little
yeah, it's
queer
just a
nudge.
little nod. Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's
It,
not. And the thing is, like, they don't make a big deal out of it. And like
yeah.
that's,
yeah,
for me, that's my favorite. When it's not a big deal. When it's just like, yeah, that's not the point of the story. It's just they're here. It's representation. And
yeah. I
I
think it
think that's the
was.
same thing.
I think it was that
It-
they had that, and then there was like the first level where Corsica's in your group, and she like
yeah.
compliments something that Peppermint did, and Peppermint's like taken off guard, like, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah.
I think she swings that way, guys.
It's pretty cool. Like one of the things that I did want to talk about too is that the idea that everything is like a product and things can be categorized in both successes and defects. Where like Shy and his group are all seen as defects, and especially it's so funny early on because like instead of trying to fix Chai, their first mental thought is to fucking kill him. Like they don't even bother like trying to fix the
Yeah.
issue. They're like, get him, we're gonna kill him. And it's also interesting too because the robot arm itself, like the purpose of it isn't to be a magnetic guitar, it's to pick up trash.
Yeah.
So like Chai was never supposed to amount to anything, but it's kind of like he takes it upon himself to become more than what everyone else thinks or deems he should be, which I think is really cool. I love the aesthetic of like him essentially becoming a rock star. And it's funny because like yeah, we talk about how he gets a new arm to play guitar and that he doesn't know how, but it's like he has like the vision and the dream and like every little animation like when you're going through combat and they have that little mid-screen animate like mid-fight animation, he's like trying to like rock out on the little metal
Yeah.
thing, and like even the way his combat works where he's like swinging the guitar like he's breaking it against the stage, there's a lot of like cute little notes to it. But I think it's also funny too because as you go through the game, even the robots have a lot of characters. As
Yes.
things go on, each of them is being like implemented on, and each of them is like essentially being deemed failures, which is so funny to me because there's like situations where there's like, oh, like they have like a museum section where they like show you the purposes of like each of the robots, and like one of them is this like big blue guy who beats the shit out of you constantly in the game, and they're like, he's your friendly dog, you're supposed to pet that guy. And there's other stuff like that too where it was like the robots they were great, like they have their own little personalities, they have like these
Yeah.
little secret notes where you get like information about like their day-to-day lives, and you also get like like you have conversations with a lot of these robots, and they give you like snark, they all feel like employees in a bigger company, and they have a lot of personality for something that's not supposed to probably be that sentient, which I love. But there was a lot of cool things like that. I love that they played with the theme, and especially like with Corsica, like she was supposed to be a part of the new Vandalay, but because her mentality was that Vandalay shouldn't be doing these things or hurting these people or manipulating people, she was thrown out and deemed worthless when she was the right direction that the
Hmm.
business should be going in. And then as like she becomes a member of the group, like that's kind of a big theme of it, is that they actually have the right idea of the way that Vandelay should be run versus the way that Kale is like currently running it. And it's like, even though he's this big perfectionist, like he's ultimately the real failure in all of it.
Yeah, like I was gonna say that everything, like those storylines, one, the one with Corsica you just talked about, and then two, Chai, feeling like a rock star, those both come to a fever pitch in that last conversation with Roxanne Vandelay, because she's talking to Corsica first, and Corsica's like, I'd love to work for the company, like the real Vandelay, and that all goes through. So she's working for the company that she actually wanted to all along. And then Chai, there's honestly the moment where he's still like not sure of himself, and he's like, okay, there's no way that like I can be part of a company. Like I'm just this goofball with a guitar. And Roxanne's the one that's like, no, like we need a leader, like we need like a true rock star. So it's that whole like final progression coming to an end there. And I'll just say also, like, even though we didn't talk about that, like there's good payoffs for I think all the characters. Like
Yeah.
Macaroon, Peppermint gets reconciliation with her mom. Like Cinnamon has that whole moment at the end,
so baller.
which like
That is
it-
such a cool one.
yeah, I'm glad that they did that to give him like, even though it's a very short moment, like a bit of time in the spotlight. And then I was also gonna say on the whole robots thing, like I totally agree about all that. That it just felt like very like slice of life moments, but every time I like came across one of those, it was always something unique, and it was like, okay, what are these robots up to this time? Like in one of the later levels, you've like find two of them that are on a date or something, like out in the field. Yeah, like there are
those
so
are
many
cute.
of those where I like those were where the comedy moments landed a lot for me. Beyond
I
like
thought
just the normal cutscenes, like those like are definitely the second in terms of my tier of like jokes that landed.
I thought the two robots real quick were funny too, because they were like, the whole drama behind their thing is like, oh, we're two different models.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Cute.
the old man robot too, who is like just like going about his day, going about his job. He's like, these youngins don't appreciate what good work looks like. I loved him. He was a crotchety old
Yeah,
guy.
there were so many quirks. Like they really nailed the writing on those.
They also had those, I forget, it's a reference to a TV show, but I could not tell you. The two detective robots.
Those were
Mhm.
reference to the Evil Within. Those,
Oh,
they were,
oh, you're right. That is
Yeah.
right. Okay.
yeah, those
Oh.
are,
yeah,
those
that's
are the
right.
Evil Within.
So they're
Right.
referencing their prior games.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay.
They were so funny though. They were like, I can't believe all these robots are dead, and you're like standing next to them.
I will also say, like, again, I think this was a really good example of writing within a game.
Yeah.
Both from a character standpoint, like for example with Cinnamon, as I was like reaching the end of the game, I was like kind of doing a mental checklist of characters that either had a solid arc, had some sort of development, or felt meaningful. And I wish we got a little bit more with Macron, just a little bit. He felt
Yeah.
like he was pushed to the wayside.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, why is Cinnamon here? He's not really doing anything. And quite literally, about 5 minutes later, that's when we get that scene with him. I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, okay, accounted
love-
for.
I love that split screen too. That's so pretty.
Yeah. Oh, and the whole time I was playing him, because he's running so slow, I'm
Yeah.
like sweating, thinking, oh, something's gonna get him. Oh no, I don't want to see something bad happen. But I will also say, like, from an interactivity perspective, which is something that I'm always paying attention to in these games, like
Mhm.
interactive narrative is something that like is my dog bone.
Yeah.
Something I thought was really interesting was I went out of my way to talk to every NPC I came across, to find
Yeah.
like every vlog, like every little audio log
Yeah.
or text, yeah, whatever. And one of them at one point was a robot that was complaining that a robot that was complaining that he got fired or was being moved to Antarctica or something, and in retaliation, he was changing it so that all of the coffee makers only put out decaf. And you have to find that vlog.
Yeah.
I keep calling it a vlog.
Eh,
I don't know what the hell.
Yeah, we get
They're
what
like,
you're
they're
saying.
like video ads.
No thing.
Yeah,
video ad.
PDAs.
You had to find that. But it doesn't matter whether or not you found it, because throughout the game, it is referenced that now all of the coffee makers are only making decaf. At one point, Corsica, over like the loudspeaker before you recruit her, she's like, "What do you mean a coffee maker needs a firmware update?" And then, like at the end of the game, Kale asks for cortado, and a robot assistant is like, "Sorry, they're only putting out decaf." In the final cutscene, Corsica puts her coffee cup down, and she has a coaster that says, "This machine runs on decaf." It's like it's such a
That's a really good observation. Yeah.
It's such a small dumb thing, but like if you are someone who is looking really poking around the environment, like you get an answer for this thing that seems like a weird throwaway.
You want to know something even funnier about that scene? So the reason why they're able to actually get to Kale is because he closes everything down but the cafe so they can get coffee, which is the reason why they're able to get to him at the very end of the game.
Man, that's incredible.
It's so many like little things,
really,
but
it's that random employee that is like we have to thank for everything.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Man, that's what we should do for Hi-Fi Rush too, is like play as that guy in Antarctica. See what he's up to.
Great.
Man.
No, I appreciated the character. Like every character felt unique, which when you have such a large cast can be difficult. But they all felt really different. For me, like characters for any story, TV show, book, game, whatever, characters are my top thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And they all felt unique. They all felt different. They all felt well done. I wish we got a little bit more with Macron. I was a little sad about that, but like,
also,
he still felt like his own person.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Also, rest in peace, Rekka. We never got a lot from her. We do get a lot of funny stuff from her early on, but I remember you mentioned that.
Yeah, she was really cool, and then all the bosses were really cool. I was like, you can't top this. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could kind of segue into that, but we have a cavalcade. Is that a big word? Is that a good word, Emily? Big word? Big word? Is that, did I use it right?
I don't know the rest of the sentence, so.
Okay, we have a bunch of different bosses. We've got, first we got the hand toucher 1 million guy. He's like a QA defect. That's what he does! That's what they say he does! He touches things with his hands. And then after that, we get our first real person boss, which is Rekka. Then we get Zanzo, who isn't a real boss, but he has like a pretty funny stage. After that, we get Corsica, which is a rhythm game kind of boss. And then we get Roke. Oh no, Mimosa, then Roke, and then Kale. I think like one of the things that I wanted to mention was that the bosses themselves all had really fun perks and gimmicks. I think one of the funniest things, like for the QA tester bot, for example, there's literally on his forehead a mark that says weak spot, and if you break his head open, you can keep hitting that, and it does more damage over like a course of time. But each of them was a lot of fun. I think my two favorites, like I had mentioned previously, were like Mimosa and Roke. Even though I complained about the gold earlier, his boss fight leading up to that point was one of my favorites. And I think that like with the bosses, I like how each of them brings their personality into the fight. So if we were talking about like Rekka, for example, she was like a big WWE wrestler, and like all of her aesthetics, the poses that she's doing, it's like, it's nuts. It's a lot of fun. And especially like looking at Zanzo too, with all the poses, I couldn't help but just like love all of the evil villains. And none of them, it's so funny because none of them are like truly entirely evil. It's just really greedy, and the overarching theme of the game is just essentially that, like corporate greed kind of ruling over everything and kind of ruining life as it is. and it's like even having like the break room within, like, as your hub between levels, as like a spot where you can kind of relax and be human just for a little bit, was just really nice, because the rest of the world itself is like always moving, it's always busy, it's always working, and you see it through everything. And it's so funny seeing like the bosses too, like of each of the heads being kind of like an awful boss. Even Corsica is like going, like the reason she gets caught is because she's not paying attention to like Chai coming up. She just set up like a big barrier wall of defense. But it was pretty neat. Like I loved all the bosses. I want to hear what you guys, which one was your favorite bosses and what you thought about them. It's cool.
I was a fan of the Corsica boss the most. I feel like one, it introduced the mechanic that we, utilized more throughout the game, but I just felt like that fight, the way it was structured, stuck with me more. Like having the true 1v1 there, like there was something about it that just was very enjoyable for me as a player. And then I also feel like specifically the 808 section of the Kale boss, which I've mentioned, like when I realized, okay, like Chai is getting mind controlled, what are we gonna do? And then it like panned and zoomed over to 808, and I'm like, wait, do we get to play as the cat? This is incredible. And like I think it perfectly, like, it's very for a short amount of time too, so I felt like it was a good amount of like, okay, you just have to like scratch Kale twice and then like, okay, now you're back to Chai. Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention that's kind of tangential about Corsica is that I found it really funny how at the end when they're putting in like all the keys for the security, and Corsica's password is just password when she's the head of security. I was like, okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
I love the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, so my favorite boss fight was Corsica. I think she was probably also one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
One of, because again, they were all pretty good. I did like the fact that she was incredibly low tech at this like cyberpunk dystopian company. Again, with complaining about the firmware, her password is password.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I just thought that was kind of funny. The thing that I liked about her boss fight was I do enjoy a boss fight that's not just punching, where you do get a little bit more, be it like dialogue or lore or something going on. And hers was basically a rhythm game with conversation in between different segments.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny because her password isn't on a USB chip, it's memorized, so they have to like get her out. They have to get it out of her, and they want to try to flip her because she's new and there's some strife and tension. So initially it's supposed to be like Chai trying to convince her to come over to their side, and he basically succeeds, but then he like misunderstands the definition of one word, and I don't remember what word it was, but he basically calls her stupid, and then
The pose he does too is so fucking funny. Like he's like talking to her, and then he's like, yeah, it would be great if you went to our side if you weren't so dumb, and he like leans back, and it's like the camera shift, and everyone's like, they're like, oh my god, you're a fucking idiot.
yeah, and then she's pissed, so then she doubles down again, and then he's like, shit, wait, if I make her angry enough, then she'll be so tired. So then he goes from trying to convince her to trying to like piss her off enough. It was entertaining to watch. You got a good sense of kind of both of their characters. You already know Chai at that point, but so that was fun. I like the Zanzo fight just because, again, I like a boss fight that's not just punching. And I thought that beating him by draining his budget as the head of R&D was really funny. I did like Rekka's. I thought hers was really good because I liked her character, and then again, that was pretty early on in the game.
It's just the thing she does. She does like
Yeah. The wrestler, the like luchador type thing that she has going on. I will say I didn't like the Roquefort that much, and I don't know if it's just because maybe I kind of forced my way through it. But it did just kind of feel like straight hitting, which kind of fell flat after everyone else's. And at one point, there was a portion of the fight where there is just like a kind of dumpy old man running around, and you have to
That's right.
slap him.
Yeah.
That's
Felt bad.
that was like the reason I liked the fight, was because it was like the first half of it is like this really scary werewolf. Oh, that's also just a fucking hilarious thing about the boss fight, which is like there's like they say like
There's a
Corsica's
painting
just,
on
like,
his
he's like,
at
yeah,
his office too, like a whole painting of a giant wolf, and you're like, I stared at him like, oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. And I go inside, and then he turns into a werewolf. I'm
Yeah.
like, I should see that shit coming.
Corsica has that line where she's like, "Oh, he's a real wolf," and then they like get into the office, and he's like, "Oh, you're challenging me, young one?" He's like, "Yeah, you're old, and I'm gonna beat you up." And then he's like, "I," and then he turns into the wolf.
Iron
He's like,
Man
"Corsica,
suit.
Corsica, it was a literal wolf."
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, she says something about a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like she literally says
Yeah.
something about a
Yeah.
wolf in sheep's clothing, and she's like,
Yeah.
I didn't know they meant literally.
Yeah. And I think it was cool because well, multiple different things. I think so one of the really neat things about Hi-Fi Rush is that as you go through a boss fight, you don't have to do the boss fight all at once. There's like sections of it. So if you
Yeah.
end up dying in between sections, you actually can respawn, which is really great because the kill fight is fucking hard. But Roquefort was really fun for me because like the first phase, you're fighting the werewolf, and like it's a lot of parrying, which I really like. I thought that was really fun. Then the next section of the fight, when he punches you through his office wall into the like outside glass area before you entered through the vault into the glass area. That okay, side note, Chai gets thrown through like a million walls, and that's also why I find it really funny, because they do it like 4 times in that fight, which I thought was silly as hell. But during that second phase, they start shooting like lasers at you, and basically you're supposed to dodge those and then grapple onto Roquefort to start doing more damage, which was really fun. I thought it was a cool way to also make the grappling hook like a key component to it. So you have another mechanic thrown onto there. So like the first phase is straight combat. Second phase is a little bit of a puzzle because you're now trying to jump around and dodge these lasers and make an opening for yourself to actually fight Roquefort. And by the third phase, I think you start getting or is it the second phase? I think you start getting those moments with like Corsica where he's like breathing fire on you or whatever, and then like Corsica's like, I can blow that back, and then you get like a unique mini game for that where like you use her to kind of blow back Roquefort. So I think that for me made the fight really interesting. Like I will say I probably enjoyed the Mimosa fight the best because that's like when you first learn to parry, and I think that does a more fun job for me because of her personality is this like glitz and glamour stage presence. So I liked it a little bit more. But then like the end of the Rogue fight is so fucking funny where like he's just like, I'm not dead yet. You're gonna have to fight me like 10 more times before you beat me. And then he just gets like fucking crushed by gold coins. It's like if
Watch
you ever
out
saw,
for
like,
falling prophets is the line.
Yes.
Yeah. Watch
Which
out for
is
falling prophets.
such a great way to phrase that.
So funny.
it reminded me like of DuckTales where like they would,
Yes,
like double
exactly.
him, and he's like perfectly fine. And this time he just like fucking
But all that like speaks to like each boss fight, I feel really comes to like this fatal character flaw of each of them like
Yeah.
being their undoing. You know, like with Roquefort, it's because he's so worried about making profits, like things being profitable, and like there's the line specifically where it's like he has contention with Zanzo because Zanzo's trying to do like R&D, so it's like ripping into the budget a lot. But in Zanzo's fight, that is the quirk of it, the fact that you are making him go over budget, like we said before. Like with Corsica, it's like playing on that hot-headedness of pissing her the fuck off. Like with
Mimosa, it's like
go
outstaging
ahead.
her because you are left shark references. Yippee! There's so many of them in this game. It references Left Shark from the Katy Perry thing from like all those years ago when it was like actually.
Okay, that did
Yeah,
not click for me until now.
Oh yeah, Left Shark. Yeah.
Yeah. There's
Okay.
a ton of different references. There's funny enough, just 2 that I want to throw out. There's a Xenogears reference where he's like sitting on the couch and they're talking about his plan. That's like a scene in like Xenogears where he's sitting on like a bench and like kind of huddled over. And then they also have a reference to Twin Peaks, which I again was like, oh my god, they did it. They mentioned Twin
Yeah,
Peaks.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Once again, Dale Cooper mentioned.
Heck yeah.
I lovingly refer to him as Dale Coopy, but I think it was funny because like essentially she gets like outstage and outshined by Chai while trying to give that performance, and he like blows her out of the water with like his guitaring, I guess. The show. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, to go off of what Tafaz just said about how like every boss's downfall is kind of like their shtick, after I finished the game, you know, you Google, you like read what other people have to say about the game you just played, and someone pointed something out that I thought was interesting, and I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not saying I agree. I think it's interesting to chew over, so I want to like pose it. Someone had someone's had argued that the bosses all represent like a deadly sin, essentially. With like Kale is very much pride. Corsica is kind of sloth because she's kind of like, while she doesn't not care about her job, she kind of takes like the easy way to it every time. We've got what was it?
Who's
Obviously
horny in
Rekka
this
was
equation.
one of that.
The bot was the hand feeler sin.
I think if I remember correctly, Zanzo was lust, because it's not just horniness.
It's the budget. Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
he was either lust or like gluttony. It was one of the two. Rekka, wrath. I think envy was Mimosa, because she's very jealous of you, like stealing her spotlight.
Yeah.
So it was kind of one of those, and I don't know how I feel about it. So I didn't want to like pose that to you if you think that's something, whether or not it's intentional, but if you think it fits.
I don't think it's intentional, but I definitely think it fits. Like, I think all those hit in terms of what you said. I think that you could probably have Zanzo and Rookford be like interchangeable between gluttony and lust, because it just kind of depends on how you look at it in terms of like if you care about R&D or if you care about the profits of the company. But yeah, I do think that that's something that does sort of just line up, and maybe it was one of those things where it was like a jumping off point for them, but then obviously, you know, the characters developed into much more besides that.
It kind of reminds me too, because like since this is aesthetically supposed to be like a Saturday morning cartoons, like a lot of the times that's the Saturday morning cartoon, like villains themselves would be posed or created in a way to like, I guess, represent the 7 deadly sins, because it's the easiest way that we can kind of connect I guess like certain ideas about who a character is very quickly without, since this game is really short. Also, again, part of the reason we're playing this game is because it's really short.
Yeah.
But it's just an easy short form for someone to understand what a character is like based on just like giving them characteristics of like a 7 deadly sins. It's very easy to kind of figure out what this character is about and who they are.
Yeah, maybe it is that it's just like very easy for a player to pick up on the villains and their tropes, because it's not like we do spend a lot of time with them. Like, most of the character development for all these happens within their level. Like, there's a few exceptions where people will pop up in other spots, but for the most part, it's like you hop into, you know, whatever level and you start learning about, you know, who you're going to fight at the end in like a traditional kind of game sense way. Like, that's how older games used to be, because they, you know, only had so much to work with and couldn't really go for scale. So maybe it's a bit of that as well, because I feel like there's a lot of things in here that do kind of feel like older style games, like, but in a good way. The thing that is more like arcade style, I feel like definitely plays onto, you know, older style games. But yeah, I definitely think that it's like all that lends itself to easier, quicker characterization for villains. Because, I mean, a lot of media struggles to get one villain right. Like, so to do, like, a whole league of them, like, I think you kind of have to go that way, right? Like, obviously, Kale gets a little bit more, but you can't sit there and, like, fully develop everyone that you have in this crew when you only have, like, a 6 to 8 hour game here overall.
Yeah. And I feel like that was kind of why the story was so for example, like I really like Peppermint, but like because of the way that how short the game is, the reveal that like she is the Vandelay daughter
Yeah.
um is very quick. And I think at first, I don't know if I enjoyed it that much, but honestly, after I'm a little bitch and I cry. I cry every time I see it.
I want to say
And
how. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
say that like I guess the reveal itself wasn't that special to me, but I think that the way that every other character acts post that reveal towards her is really sweet. Like they all check in on her and ask her if she's doing okay. And I also like how like later on it just like becomes a point of trust for them. It's like essentially trust falls like because she's revealed that she is a Vandelay to the rest of the cast, they have more reason and more like kindness towards her, and it starts to really connect the cast in several different ways, especially between like her and Chai who have been together
Hmm.
the whole story. It finally feels like they're kind of in that like brother and sister kind of relationship, which is really fun and nice and sweet. So
Yeah.
while I think like the reveal is too quick, I do love how it ends up playing into the rest of the game.
How quick in that level did you guys pick up on like what they were doing in terms of the reveal of her being a Vandalay? Because the first like exhibit where she started getting kind of annoyed at how like the history of the company was being talked about, I was like, all right, I got a theory here. Like I texted Mendez about it, and I was like, okay, I think she is the daughter of the CEO. And then like 20 minutes later, I was like, okay, yeah, I was right.
My I guess my hot take was like kind of new from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, it was
It
like a yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I at the very start, like she came in a little bit too hot on Kale. Which is like, okay, she's a revolutionary. Something about it felt like weirdly personal. And then it's
Yeah.
like if you look at the two of them side by side, they did a good
Yeah,
job
it
of making them
clicks.
look
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, it's
So I was
believable.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, maybe she's his daughter, but then it's like, he looks kind of young or something. So
Mhm.
like I thought that there and then yeah, I was not surprised.
Yeah.
When she got very upset about in the museum exhibit, like the
Yeah.
fact that Vandalay wasn't being paid homage, like he wasn't paying her homage. I was like, nope, that's mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's mom me. Mom me. Um I think too, it's cool too, because talking about, I guess, disabilities and going back to it, one of the reasons that Peppermint is so upset by the way that Vandelay is changing was because the start of Project Armstrong had to do with her leg, where she was in an accident very young, and the first, like, I guess, machine made to essentially like kind of replace her leg was like the mother starting Project Armstrong. And like it's interesting because like all of that technology, like for Macron for example, or Macron, I keep calling Macron, that's the French prime
Yeah.
minister.
It's very
It's Macron.
similar.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really
I
similar.
keep messing it up, but the the thing about it that I really like is that like so because of that he kind of she touched other people too, like Macaroon, and like eventually in the future she ends up impacting Corsica as well. The only person who is not technically given this gift is Chai. The mother Vandelay, it means everything because it means that like, everybody can have full function every day versus like Kale who's just like fuck it, we made an arm for some guy. Like he doesn't really care about the product at all other than
Yeah.
to sell it.
Speaking about like characterization, I think something that's worth noting is like they managed to make every person in Chai's crew like feel unique. Like we kind of touched on this earlier, but the fact that like it's kind of the same story for what like three of them, but like not in the same way. Like it's three just disgruntled employees that now have switched sides, or three. I guess only two really, Macaroon and Corsica, but yeah, it's like that could have come off as very just like samey, but each of them has their own uniqueness to it, and like they kind of come about the crew and join the crew in their own unique way, which is I feel like a major factor to it feeling like there's variance there.
Yeah. Something I do just want to point out, like, Kale mind controlled his own mom. Like that's
Like, how
that's
stereotypically evil, right? Like,
that's but the thing is that like he mind controlled his own mother, but like it wasn't even total, like it was mind control enough to make her imprison them, but like it wasn't total mind control because it just made them want to buy product anyway.
yeah,
That's beside the point. The one thing that I will say about like the like crew, the resistance, whatever the hell we want to call them, is normally like at the end I do tend to find it really corny when it's like, and then everybody teamed up and took down the big bad.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, I gotta like
yeah.
the way there was something about the way that they did it, and it might have been the song that I was listening to, which again, I had,
Whirring. Yes. Oh.
No, I don't think she
No,
did
not,
listen to
not
Whirring.
Whirring.
no,
Oh.
no, I didn't. I have to like go and listen to the actual soundtrack, and honestly, I might like replay this game on non-streamer mode to listen to the normal music.
Yeah.
Which I have mixed feelings about the original soundtrack. Mostly good, but in some places. But the song that was playing in that moment, and especially like when he does the resonance with like that
Yeah.
sound barrier that they have, like that was very like the music was very good in that moment. And I think it was a combination of the music and just again we like the characters, they feel meaningful, so that kind of like slow build of like you see everyone like have his back and kind of like come together was very fun. In terms of like the music that I had, I liked it. It was all very good. I didn't have a song that I didn't like. But the problem is that there were definitely tracks that felt very samey. Where like they just felt faster, but they were the same song more or less. I can't there are like large chunks of stages where I'm like, I don't necessarily know if the music changed. Like I know that it pops up MTV style, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I love
yeah,
that so
that was
much.
Yeah,
fun.
that was great.
And like it changed then, but for the most part, a lot of it did feel a little bit samey, which was disappointing. But the song at the end and during Kale's fight, it's really good. A lot of the boss music was really good, but in between,
I would
One
guess
thing about-
that you have a lot of like glass pyramids probably.
it was all.
on...
I think it was 100% glass pyramids. Yeah.
because they pop up a bit in the original, but they're definitely like used very sparsely.
Yeah.
I think it was 100% glass pyramids. I'm not certain.
Yeah, so that's
I will
probably
say-
why you have a lot of like feeling samey, because it's just like, you know, the band can only like do so
Made
much.
so many songs,
Like,
yeah.
you know, it's that, and then like on the original soundtrack, as Nick mentioned like earlier, we're doing 9 Inch Nails, so it's kind of like an apples to orange scenario. But go ahead, Nick, I don't want to cut you off.
The I would say that I part of the music too that I really did enjoy was that if you notice mid combat, depending on
You guys,
like your
sorry, you
weight
guys got the you guys got Lonely Boy by the Black Keys. God damn.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we got some cool tracks. Yeah, but the like the music for going into it, like while you're playing the game, as the pace of the battle like changes, it's really cool how like with the licensed music in particular, they'll have like a portion of the song, they'll have like the vocals playing, they'll cut to combat, you'll be fighting something, and they'll extend like that section of the song, and then they'll also sometimes add in like vocal cues or elements as you're doing really good in the fight. And then like as you get to the next section, that track continues from there. It was really cool. I just like remember like going back to the Chainsaw song, like Amoid Chainsaw, like that whole section where it was like like you get like the opening of the song, the guitar riff popping off, you landing, and then you start like fighting those guys as the lasers are kind of coming towards you. And there's just like they have like that bass section and the drums like going fucking crazy as you're like fighting all those robots before grappling hooking off to the next section. That is like one of those things that like really sticks out in my mind. And again, like we were talking about worrying, it was really cool because during the game, like they kind of explain that 808 actually teleports people in to help you during fights. And it's kind of comical because they're actually there the entire time. They just don't want to help you because they know that Chai will somehow figure out how to get things done. So they just let you do things. So, for example, like in the Roquefort fight, they're actually standing right outside the office and they mention that that they didn't go in to help you. But they help you by like teleporting into fights and using as assists. But
Mhm.
in that like final section of the game, what I really liked was before you even were prompted to like find a way forward, they actually do it for you. So it kind of has this like neat turnaround where before they were only kind of partially willing to stick out their necks for you, but here they're kind of showing you like we are friends and I'm going to help you through any situation that you need by like directly having an impact. And I think that's where it kind of earns it because each character has a moment where like, you know, like Macaron punches the crate over to you, like Peppermint shoots down some of the strings and cables and things like that. I forget what Corsica does, honestly.
One of
Don't
the
hate me.
generators.
One of the
Yeah,
generators, correct.
yeah.
And then like Cinema has his big moment where he he's like, "Oh, he dropped his arm. Let me shove my arm in it and use it like a big cannon." And he goes, and it's the greatest moment in video game history because then as Cinnamon like puts his arm into the mech, he can't really aim the arm, so it takes every member of the cast holding on to the laser together to like focus the arm towards Kale's giant robot that Zanzo was building. Funny enough,
Yeah.
because Zanzo wanted to make a giant robot to kill Chai, and they wasted all of their budget on it, and it wasn't completed. But then Kale just decides to finish it later in the game, and having that last moment where you get those like rhythm presses with everyone holding on, and then you get that like I said, that final cut in with each of the character portraits, and they all have these like great well animated facial expressions as they like kind of smirk and they shoot the big laser. Like I felt like that's what I mean by I think the reveal was too early, but the payoff was so good that I didn't really mind it because that section in particular like made me really really love the cast and seeing them all working together and how they kind of play and banter off each other as they're going through the stage. It was a lot of fun, and I really, like I said, worrying on the soundtrack, god tier, god
Yeah,
tier.
I
Emily,
would
I
definitely
linked the
recommend
song.
listening to that after we finish the call here. Just like
Yeah,
Yeah.
zone out and vibe to that shit.
so good. It's so good.
Oh yeah.
um, does anyone have any like final thoughts? I feel like we're at a pretty good point here
Yeah.
where we've said
You
our
want to do like
piece, but if anyone has anything else they'd like to mention.
you want to do like roses and thorns, and if we'd recommend or something? Does that feel?
That feels good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me there really wasn't a lot that felt like pressure points. Like difficulty wasn't a concern for me because I was playing on normal. I feel like the biggest thing for me is that the writing really hit as we touched on, and that's like very big for me. Like Emily was saying, like characters, that's at the forefront. If that works, like I can deal with a lot of other stuff that maybe isn't up to par in a game, but that's very important to me as a player. So the fact that all that hit, I think, was the biggest standout for me. In addition to the gameplay, like honestly being good, like I feel like it's difficult for me to get into gameplay and really like appreciate good gameplay game design in more recent memory, but this definitely felt like it was keeping me engaged, and as I mentioned, like I wanted to go into the practice range to practice combos and everything. So props to the game for that. I would definitely say recommend. Like, I feel that I did this game a disservice by renting it on Game Pass for $1. Like, it deserves way more of my money than that. But I'm super glad that I played through it, as this was a game that I just sort of had on my, like, I don't even want to say radar. Like, it did kind of look interesting to me. I remember when it released, but there just wasn't that thing to make me like pull the trigger, and I'm so glad that I finally played through it. So
Yeah, definitely like the weak points for me were pretty small. The lock-on thing would have been helpful. That did like kind of force me into changing my ult a couple of times. Just because like I had the guitar ride at one point, which was pretty fun,
Yeah.
but God, so hard to steer.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that was a little bit difficult, and there were a few moments when it's like wasn't quite sure what the game was asking of me to do, especially in the Mimosa, and frankly the Kale fight too, and a little bit of visual clutter. But the things that I liked, I like completely outweighed that. Like I said, I loved the characters. I think the game kept its scope really tight. It did a really good job with like form and function. Form follows function, where again you could not remove the idea that this is a rhythm game from the core concept of the game. Like they were inextricably intertwined, which was so cool. And frankly, like I said, this was the first rhythm game I played. This was the best introduction to, I don't even want to say the rhythm game genre because it feels a little reductive to the game. But this was the game that would make me like rhythm games. It high, like, what is it? Easy to learn, hard to master. Very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely recommend this game. And it's short, like we said, it's short.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess like for me personally, like one of the things, like you said, since it's short, this is my second time playing through the game, and I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time. I think too that like for me personally, like I always wish that I could have all the abilities unlocked from the start, but that would break the game's pacing so much. But it's so cool because of how short the game is, the replayability is like off the charts. Like you can either continue your save file from where you were and like go for any of the unlockable challenges. They have like a whole mural that you can paint. They have like an arcade mode where you can like climb a tower after you beat the game. And they also have like the kill doors, like doors for like a like they're all challenges or something, and then you get like a unique cutscene where surprise surprise Kale is actually still alive but in AI form. He's not entirely dead, which is cute for like leading into a sequel and gives the story a little bit more to do as it comes out. But yeah, I think like there part of me there's part of me at times where I want to say that I wish the game was a bit longer, but every time I play it, I always feel like it being paced the way that it was, I never got bored of it, and I always found myself entertained by it. Whether it's like the story, the characters, the combat, everything always made me feel great. I think the only gripes I have are only like really minor. Like I had like I said, I think the assist. I think one of the other things I forgot to mention that with the ults for later combat, since they're really important to actually execute. For the healing one, if you beat all enemies mid-fight, activate the healing ult, and you're not paying attention to the prompt as the cutscene's playing, if you miss that attack, or I think if it might not even let you respond to it, you actually don't get to use your ult, and it chews up the meter, which was something that I dealt with while I was playing the game. Things like that, where I feel like there's just like some small combat fixes that could have been, I think, like honestly fixed in a patch, but again, like the studio was
Yeah.
dealing with stuff, so I don't blame them for not fixing the game. um the it's just like all these little minor things, but they never add up to me like actually hating or not enjoying my experience. It always just was like a minor frustration for something that I enjoyed so deeply. So that's pretty much what I have to say about it.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a good spot to wrap it up. In terms
Many
of
booms.
looking, how many booms? 7
How
booms.
many- Out of 5 big booms.
Yeah, it's so good that it just surpasses all of that. Next we will be going over Sifu, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, this was fun. I think this was a nice talk, and go Hi-Fi Rush, man. Rock on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Rock on.